Okay, hello again. The second story that we're going to discuss is Everyday Use by Alice Walker. And if you will, go to week 3 and click on Lecture Slideshow, and then click on the slideshow for Alice Walker. You'll open up the vocabulary. Also a little bit of information about Alice Walker, biographical information. If you go to the third slide, you'll begin the vocabulary that is in this story, Everyday Use. The first is Augusta. It's a city in Georgia on the Savannah River. And the term hooked in the side means kicked by a cow. The next term, Wasuzo Teano, a greeting used by black Muslims. This is a point in the story. This is referring to the mother's daughter Dee, who's returned from college and is visiting, and the mother's surprised to find that Dee has changed her name, that she's dressed in traditional African garb, and she's using a lot of words and language that her mother doesn't understand. Assalamu alaikum is the Muslim salutation meaning peace be with you. The next slide is a definition and a picture of the Model A car, the Ford car that replaced the Model T in the late 1920s. The Model A was proverbial for its quality and durability. Okay, the next, as much as I could dig up pictures, I've put them in here so you can actually get a visual of some of these terms. But the Salt Lick Shelter, couldn't find anything except a cartoon. But Salt Lick Shelter, these are shelters built to prevent rain from dissolving large blocks of rock salt set up on poles for cattle. You know, if you've heard of feeding this to horses, cows also go up to salt, they call them salt licks, and just lick the salt there. So they put some kind of shelter over it so the rain wouldn't come down and cause the salt to melt away. Next is clabber. This is sour milk that has thickened or curdled. And then there's a lot of reference in these stories to quilts and dashers. Now the dasher is a device having blades for agitating a liquid or a semi-solid. And there's a picture on the slide of a pretty nice one. But in the story, the mother makes reference to a lot of these household items, makes reference to them being homemade instead of purchased. So the quilts were handmade, the dashers were built, all these things were made. And if you read the very beginning of this story, I hope you've read it already, but the very beginning of the story describes the mother as being able to work like a man. She can kill a hog and have that thing skinned and have all the cuts of meat cut up by sundown, stored in the shed, whatever. And so you can imagine the mother just basically taking on the role of both parents. There's absolutely no discussion about a father, not a discussion about his role, if any, in the lives of the girls, or what happened to him, whether the parents divorced or he died. We don't know any of that, but we do know that the mother is the head of the home, and she takes care of the girls. The last term is snuff. This is a preparation of pulverized tobacco to be inhaled through the nostrils, chewed, or placed against the gums. So if you ever see pictures of people who've made a lifelong habit of chewing snuff or putting it against their gums, they have very bad teeth as a result of it. Anyway, snuff is still something that Maggie and her mother like to enjoy in the evening when they're rocking on the porch. Okay, so is there one more? Okay. So let's get into the discussion questions. The first one is, from whose perspective is the story Everyday Use told? Well, remember A and P, all from the very beginning, there's reference to I and me, so we know that Sammy's telling the story. We don't even really know his name until we get toward the end of the story. We don't learn the mother's name in this one. All we know is that she is the mother, and the story's being told from her perspective. So she's telling the story as a mother would. She knows everything about her girls. She knows everything about Maggie. She knows everything about Dee. She has hopes and dreams for both of them. Dee coming back and changing her name, changing her identity in several ways, and basically picking away at some of the ways that the mother and Maggie do things. This does not sit well with the mother. The mother gets very upset with Dee, but even though she's frustrated and upset with Dee, she still loves her, and you can tell that she wants very much for that love to be reciprocated. And there's a question about that later on in the list here. So it's told from the mother's perspective. The second is contrast the way Dee believes her mother and sister should appreciate the old quilts and dashers with the way her mother and sister have appreciated the quilts and dashers all along. There is a big difference here. Dee, in a way, thinks it's time to put the past in the past. All of these things are relics, they're artifacts,